Once the 4th of July's gone, it's just downhill from there. Are my neighbors going to give me dirty looks if I do some fountains in the driveway? Is that a thing?
Why would they give you dirty looks?
You're not supposed to do any fireworks. It's all illegal
Like at
now.
all?
You can't do any fireworks.
Oh, I did
They're
fireworks.
all illegal.
Yeah, no, I would say about 5 years ago, I did fireworks in Portland, like proper Portland.
Sure.
And I would just tell you, I think you're going to be surprised how many fireworks are going off.
Yeah, it's something that I don't think about because if you don't have a kid, you don't really think about ever buying fireworks. Like there's no reason to do it. It's kind of a waste of money.
It is a waste of money.
But now that I've gotten to this point, like I'm going to put on a little bit of a show.
Look at you now.
Teddy's now of the age where he was too
Interesting.
young last year. He didn't know what the hell was going on. He went to bed at like 6 o'clock. Now it's like, a couple of fountains in the driveway.
Now,
Just get sparklers, man.
put on a
Sparklers
show
will be
for him.
fine. Like,
Now-
if he's got the sparkler, he'll be okay.
what if you buy 4 like fountains and he gets freaked out after one?
Then I stop. I'll hold on to him for next year. Put him in the garage. It'll be fine.
And hopefully the next year he's okay with
Hopefully
them.
next year he'll be all right. You know, we'll hold on, or I'll give him to my brother. He can go light him off with the kids or something.
Well, the Trailblazers lit off their own fireworks last night. They announced via Shams that goodbye Deandre Ayton. The Blazers and Deandre Ayton have agreed to a buyout of his last remaining year of his contract. Now, we don't have the exact figure yet. He was due $35.6 million this year, and everybody thought with the expiring they were going to trade him because, they drafted another center.
They did.
They could not be any more clear how the Blazers felt about Deandre Ayton. They had back-to-back drafts of center. And so with that move, Ayton is now going to be a free agent. He is going to be a free agent a year early. The Blazers are going to get whatever that amount is off their books. I believe I saw this from Meringue that he calculated they had about 22 to 23 million of wiggle room. And so if they got him at 18, perfect. And then whatever the remaining amount is on their books. But DeAndre Ayton was bought out by the Portland Trail Blazers. And according to Shams, for the record, him and his representatives approached the Blazers about this.
Yes.
Because he wanted to go to, quote, a winning situation, end quote.
Yes. But I thought we were going for a winning situation next year. I thought we were a play-in playoff team. I'm a little confused by that.
I do have questions going forward about things. I understand people getting excited about Young Hansen clearly becoming the backup here. I know Rob Will is still on the roster, but it's clearly Young Hansen is the backup. I have questions, but first, your thoughts on the Blazers and this announcement coming out last night.
My first thought is I owe you a beer or a sandwich. It happened far quicker than I thought it would. One of the centers is gone, and I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to get rid of him. And the primary reason I felt that way is because exactly what transpired in this case. I have brought up now for 2 weeks or a week plus whenever they drafted Young Hansen last Wednesday. I don't see how you possibly trade DeAndre Ayton. It does not make sense for them. So you have to match 90% of salaries in a trade. He makes $35 million. So that basically tells you you're either bringing on another guy on an expiring, which why would another team trade an expiring for an expiring? That usually doesn't make sense. Or you're bringing on a contract that is a contract that a team wants to get out of, and they will take on DeAndre Ayton's expiring, but you take on that deal, a la Anthony Simons and Drew Holiday. He's got 3 years left with all that money. The Blazers wanted to move on from Simons. Boston wanted out of the contract. He's an expiring. It made sense for both sides. We can question the fit of Drew Holiday. I totally get that. But from a financial standpoint, it made sense for the two teams. This one, why would you take on more salary in a trade for DeAndre Ayton when there already wasn't a lot of interest out there? I've seen a lot of fans who have questioned this and said, well, if there's immediate interest from teams on the buyout market, how could you tell me there isn't trade interest? Because, go think about, he's probably going to sign with the Lakers. It seems like that's the most likely destination. Go look up and down Lakers salaries and look at how many players it would have taken in that trade in order to make this financially make sense for the Lakers to do it and the Blazers to do it, and it just doesn't fit. So I give the Blazers a ton of credit here. Time is now to move on. He evidently wanted out. Good for him. Mm-hmm. You've spent back-to-back first-round picks on centers. They need to play because you should be playing your draft picks. And having him in Portland for another year was just simply log-jamming a position where you're trying to develop two young guys. So get him out of here. Tell him thank you, and we'll see where he goes signs from here.
Well, okay, so before we get to that, I should report I shouldn't report, but I should tell you the reports are coming out. Michael Scotto does stuff for Hoops Hype. He said Portland had trade discussions with several teams, interested in Ayton. However, the Blazers made it clear they didn't want to take on multi-year contracts in return, which made it challenging to find contracts and players to match the $35 million salary. Hyken added, Sean Hyken, that is, of the Rose Garden Report. In general, the Blazers are very focused on keeping the books clean beyond next summer. Drew was an exception because that was a player they wanted. Even with him and Grant on the books, they're still projected to have $55 million in space next summer. Now,
and that's before a Shaden or Scoot extension, which potentially how the year goes might be on the horizon.
So this move, one, it tells you obviously his value sucked.
Yes.
That's pretty quite clear. Two,
at the contract. If he was making $15 million a year, there would have been trade partners all over the place.
Right. I agree with that. Yes. At the second part of this, I thought my first initial thought was extension coming. Now, who's the extension coming for? Well, here's Kevin Pelton of ESPN.com in writing how the Blazers can ace their offseason. The one move they should make, get Kamara extended for as long as possible. 9.2 over 4 years, which is, I think, what they're going to do.
Lock him up.
He is an all-NBA defender. His shooting splitting, I'm not sourcing. I'm just telling you a gut thought I had when I saw the buyout was announced. I think they're going to move that direction. They're going to come Tamani locked up on an extension, and then we'll see where the cap play and prove how much he's worth. And Scoot will obviously be getting into that territory after this coming season. So that's just my takeaway initially. The other one here is, and I got into a back and forth, and I don't know if I was disagreeing or we were arguing, but I got into a back and forth, everything accurately. The amount of money he was owed, what you want in return. They wanted to free up minutes clearly for young Hans. There is no world that exists in my mind that tells me that when they traded for Deandre Ayton, even if a lot of that trade was going to get nothing in return for moving or getting Ayton.
Nope.
It just that it may not have been the number one driving force, but you didn't trade for that asset under the assumption that you were going to get nothing for him.
That's totally fair.
Do you agree with that?
I agree with that.
Because I had somebody disagreeing and saying, I think it was entirely about now.
Yeah. And one of the teams had to attach a first-round pick to get
right.
rid of him.
You can say that. And then I'd counter and say, yeah, and Charlotte got Colin Sexton and a second-round pick for him. So clearly his value is somewhere in the middle there.
They did, yeah.
Even though I don't think he's a very good player anymore. So that was my only criticism-esque of it is when they made that deal to get him, there's no way you would have told them at that moment, hey, you're going to get him, but then he's not going to play very much. He's not going to be very good.
Played 95 games in 2 years.
And you'll get nothing for him.
Yep.
There's no way they would have agreed it. They would have been like, no, come on, we'll get something for him.
Former number one overall pick.
And so that's kind of my only question now is some of the team building stuff here because I don't think they're done. And I'm not telling you that they're going to move this guy or that guy. I just don't believe they're done. And I think it's totally logical and reasonable to not jump on a microphone, whether you be a podcaster or a radio host, and conclude this or that about their offseason. It's not done, so I'm going to wait. But if I would have told Blazer fans a week and a half before the season ended, guys, they're going to get rid of Ant and Ayton this summer, and they're going to get 35-year-old Jrue Holiday and give 2 second-round picks, and that's it?
Yeah.
I don't think people would have believed you. I don't think people would have believed you. Some might have. Some might have looked at the cap space stuff and said, yeah, it's going to be tough. But I think a lot of Blazer fans would have assumed valuable or somewhat good pieces in return. Now, you can say Jrue is one of those, certainly, but they had to attach 2 seconds.
They did.
With one of the players, and the other, they're just paying to leave. I don't know how people would have felt about that had I told you that at the end of the regular season.
Yeah, that's a totally fair point, and I see your argument on Ayton. I guess part of it for me why I don't have a disappointed mindset today is I never really viewed him that way when he came over. Like, this is a guy who was a starting center for an NBA Finals team in Phoenix with number one overall pick. They had to match the contract to keep him because they didn't want to lose him for nothing, so that's why the contract was so bloated for Phoenix in the first place. But clearly he was disgruntled there, and they were disgruntled with him. And when there's that much noise about a young player, usually it follows you. And after watching him for 2 years in a Blazer uniform, there were unquestionably good games. Of course there were. He's a talented player. But there were so many nights where there just was zero level of interest. He's standing around watching defensive possession after defensive possession, didn't seem to really care about the outcome of the game. And then he'd have stretches where he'd dominate for a week, and then he'd disappear for a week. He only played 95 games in 2 years in Portland.
Oh, he wasn't good.
He
was
wasn't
terrible.
reliable. He was inconsistent,
100%.
wildly inconsistent. He makes $35 million a year. And so I never had this grandiose idea that he was going to turn into something that he wasn't in Phoenix in the first place. And if that wasn't going to happen, moving on from a $35 million deal is difficult unless Portland was in a position right now where they were saying, hey, we want to go all in, and you had a disgruntled star somewhere and they were looking to take on an expiring contract and you were taking on a big deal. That was the only kind of trade that would ever make sense for Deandre Ayton. Now he can go into the buyout market and sign for 10 to 15 million. See the overall point on the offseason. I'm stuck between two opinions right now.
I agree with you, by the way. I don't want to interrupt you. I'll let you finish. I am on the side of clearly the market wasn't there for him. Cool. I'm glad you punted.
Yeah, just rip the Band-Aid off. If this isn't going to work, don't keep him around for another year.
Wish you would have punted on Ant for Scoot, but you didn't.
Yes.
So whatever, okay. But I'm glad they punted and said, we really love this Chinese kid, and we got the clinger.
Yeah.
So, let's free up the minutes here, and he's been a nothing asset for the team since he got here.
No.
So 100% agree I'm glad they didn't just wait. But I am a little surprised, again, to the lack of return, I guess I should say, from two of their players.
And that's totally understandable. I think part of it, too, for Blazer fans who largely react that way or who are angry at Joe Cronin or people who are just sniffing their own farts. Like, Anthony Simons is a good player. Mm-hmm. He's maybe a number 3 on a championship team, and he needs a new contract. Deandre Ayton is vastly overpaid at $35 million a year. If he was on a $17, $18, $19, $20 million contract right now, you would have had teams lining up to go sign him.
What about a $14 million mid-level?
Or a $14 million mid-level, because that's exactly what he's going to go sign for, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just 35 didn't make sense. And Anthony Simons doesn't play any defense, and he's been the same player. And he had a horrible year last year as a guy who was supposed to be your primary scorer. I'm stuck between two silos. On the one hand, questioning moves and what it means for Drew Holiday is a win-now player. DeAndre Ayton's a win-now player. Young Hanson's a development player, and other Scoot and Shea are kind of more development. So you got these two different things going on at the same time. So questioning that while also being thankful and saying, finally, you're doing some of the stuff that I've been asking you to do for a year and a half. Having Anthony Simons, after drafting guards in the top 10 back-to-back years, made no sense. Having DeAndre Ayton on the roster after drafting centers in the first round back-to-back years made no sense. So on the one hand, I'm appreciative of moves that they've made. I think they're both a little too late, while also questioning, how does this all fit together and work?